here. So just to start with, I'm just a regular community member. I have no skin in the game around smart cities, or I'm just concerned about what's happening within our towns. And I've been looking for about a year or so, trying to work out what's going on. And so I'm bringing to you some of the things I found out. I have decided that I really need to do a rolling sort of series, so monthly unpack an aspect of what I'll talk about today. There's just way too much to, 40 minutes to be able to cover everything. And that gives me the capacity to focus on one area a month and really research rather than getting dragged, because there's so much going on. So as we all do, and as we all look at things from particular perspectives, I'm looking at the concept of a smart city, global city, and I'll show you why I'm talking like this about the Central Coast in a little bit. But I'm looking at it through a particular lens. I'm concerned, and I'm going to say that off the bat, I'm concerned about this model and this structure. I'm not going to speak to the wonderful benefits of technology, smart cities and global citizens. This is predominantly what is presented in the mainstream news, universities, think tanks, corporate entities and the government. Instead, I'm looking at this to understand how are ordinary people going to be affected? What say do people have in this within a democracy? Who has and who will benefit? What impacts will this have on privacy, autonomy, a sense of real purpose, and that our life is ours and that we can determine outcomes for ourselves. I want to understand what impact these transformative structures will have on our government and unpack the risks when business and government are entwined together. The area I'll be mapping is so complex and has so many moving parts, and I'm no expert, I'm just trying to work it out, so that I'm going to run, as I said, this on a monthly basis, where I unpack one element at a time. So my objective in this is that people have as much of the information as possible so you can make informed decisions when it's coming into your town. I have always been concerned about environmental rights, environmental degradation, human rights, overconsumption, and the monopolisation of our world by the wealthiest. And I want to look at what is coming in through a crisis. It's a crisis capitalism model, so never let a good crisis go to waste. And to dig beneath the lovely language that is talked about with these plans that are coming in to see what's really being proposed and then the inherent powers structures being established. I invite you to join us monthly as we sort of go along this journey. So to understand concerns regarding smart cities, we need to understand context. Because if all smart cities were used for was to just, give an alert out when a rubbish bin needs to be emptied or a street light goes out, I don't think any of us would be concerned. The context we are in is that we are being directed at an extraordinarily fast pace into a global citizen structure overseen by unelected and unaccountable entities such as the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, and I'll show you all of this. And I believe this has enormous implications for our democracy. In a democracy, our government has the job of representing the people, not global corporate interests. And I find it extremely disturbing that our government has not been transparent regarding the plans that are being introduced. When I ask people, what is a smart city, nobody that I've known has known or even really heard the term. And I endeavour to unpack and try to make sense of these new models of governance and control which are coming in, which according to the World Economic Forum will change what it means to be human. Okay, so what are they? A smart cities and a global city, what are they and what are the potential implications? And my questions are, why is the public so unaware of the breadth of the smart city plan? What implications are there when government and big business partner? Who holds the power? Who holds the global corporates and structures accountable? How do community members have a say in a purported democracy? And what level of control will this usher in? Who will be in charge? And what does it mean for humanity? So they're my questions. And if you look, I'm going to go through quite a few definitions of smart cities. They have different, it's not just one definition. So I've just got to show you a bit of the arena that we're in. And again, it's something to grapple with. It's not like I can give all the answers, because even when you listen to people talking about it, they don't even know, there's no definitive answer. And so smart city components, we have smart government, we've got smart manufacturing, we have smart health, smart agriculture, which is indoors, and then smart transportation. So there's a number of aspects. Okay, so this is just a smart city. This is Wikipedia. It's a technologically modern urban area, uses different types of electronic methods and sensors to collect specific data. Information gained from that data is used to manage assets, resources and services, and that data is used to improve operations across the city. So this includes data collected from citizens, devices, buildings and assets that's processed and analysed to monitor and manage traffic and transportation systems, power plants, utilities, water supply networks, waste, criminal investigations, information systems, schools, libraries, hospitals and other community services. So they're smart both in the way their governments harness technology as well as in how they monitor, analyse, plan and govern the city. In smart cities, the sharing of data is not limited to the city itself, but also includes its businesses, citizens and other third parties that can benefit. So the concept integrates information and communication technology and various physical devices connected to the Internet of Things, and I'll explain the Internet of Things shortly, to optimise the efficiency of city operations and services and connect to citizens. So smart city technology allows city officials to interact directly with both community and city infrastructure and to monitor what's happening in the city and how the city is evolving. So in a nutshell, part of the component of smart cities is just big data and collecting data through a huge amount of sensors. Yeah. Okay, so this is the Australian smartcommunities.org.au, smart data, collecting, storing and analysing data, smart citizens, smart capability by raising our skill level and getting us more and more interacting on smart devices, smart infrastructure, collects, monitors, analyses and reports on high value aspects of our city, town or region, and that this digital technology is transforming the way we interact, communicate, make decisions and deliver services. And the Australian Smart Communities Association, so there's a lot of different associations set up, works with local government, industry organisations, researchers and individuals to build knowledge, skills, capacity, policy. So you see these, and this is what's called a public-private partnership, where there are groups set up and then there's government and then there's industry all involved together. And using data about citizen engagement. So Smart Cities Council and its partners will review how data can be collected about citizen engagement from citizen activities that involve the way we move around and the built environment. They also talk about it being through social media, collecting data, and that data, I'll show you more, but that data that they collect will then inform what they do for us. So it's all coming through data, and that's going to inform government as to what needs to be put in place for citizens. Okay, and this is from National Geographic. A smart city is a city in which a suite of sensors, typically hundreds or thousands, is deployed to collect electronic data from and about people and infrastructure so as to improve efficiency and quality of life. And how does a smart city work? A smart city collects and analyses data from Internet of Things, sensors and video cameras. So again, it's the same sort of, mostly they do just talk about the technology, and this places it here. Smart cities are a consequence of the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Who's heard about the Fourth Industrial Revolution? Yeah, so about a third of people in the room. And then this is only possible, so they're starting to bring in a few of the concerns about this, because if everything you're doing is being analysed, and where's the line there between your own privacy and sense of autonomy to, what's the line here? This is only possible because of the field of big data has pushed the boundaries of privacy, confidentiality and ownership of information. With these new ways of collecting data, a caveat must be mentioned. Large amounts of data may be dehumanising in several ways, and the researcher must always keep in mind that behind the set of numbers and information, there are always human beings on the line. How will smart cities and the fourth industrial revolution carry on our cultural legacies and mould and shape our very own identities? The answer to these questions will soon be knocking at our door. So we're in part of a radical shift in the way we do things and the way governance systems are set up. And the future of smart cities and privacy. Smart cities are the future. There's no denying that. Like in other industries before, technology will continue to intertwine with city services and infrastructure until most major cities can be characterised as a smart cities. Laws will need to be passed, regulations will need to become standard, data collection will need to be limited to essential services only. If citizens want to keep their right to privacy, they're going to need to strive for change in not only how their cities work, but how governments treat their right to privacy. So that's it in a nutshell. And the two things that really concern me in there is our sense of privacy. You know, how much data is going to be collected on us? How is it going to be collected on us? Is it going to be inside our homes, which they talk about, externally? You know, where is that sort of line in the sand around when it becomes, you know, it becomes very imposing on our lives to know that we're constantly being surveilled. And the other aspect I'm concerned about is data can be used in many, many different ways. It can be used to justify a lot of stuff. So someone can look at data and see a certain something, somebody else can see it and look at it, and it can be used to justify. So my concern when I look at this model, and I'll go further on and show things about what they're saying around our government and governance, my concern is data just going to be used as a justification? Where are we and our voices in our communities? You know, when you would, probably back in the day, you'd get together and say, we want this for our town, or, you know, this is of concern to us. Are we still going to have that same avenue open to us, or is the data going to define what government's going to do? So that's just that component that concerns me there. So this comes down from, just to show where it is, this is the United Nations. So they've set up a United for Smart Sustainable Cities, and this serves as the global platform to advocate for public policy and to encourage the use of information communication technologies to facilitate and ease the transition to smart sustainable cities. So we've got the United Nations at the top. It came in Australia under Malcolm Turnbull in 2016 with the first Smart Cities Plan. That's the first time I've seen it being talked about in Australia in government plans. It might be there previously. We have KPMG and Cisco. They partnered in 2017 to help city leaders design, implement and operate new data-driven services and IoT technologies. We have Smart Transport New South Wales, and you can see here embed sensors and communications technology and infrastructure and the natural environment. Use the sensors and technology to capture, store and share government data, communicate information and insights using the data to drive decisions and generate better outcomes for people and place. And Smart Places Playbook. It will help you to harness the power of data and smart technologies to deliver more resilient places. So just showing you where it is in some of our government documents. And then we have become, sorry, this is sort of catching. Okay, so we're part of the 6 cities region, and I don't, how many people are aware that we're part of the 6 cities region? Is everyone aware of it, or some people haven't heard about it? Because there's quite a few people that still haven't heard of it when I talk to people. So we're part of a 6 cities region. A Greater Cities Commission has been set up, and it includes the Central Coast. And this happened in March last year. So we're now part of a global city region. This is their documents. So the Greater Cities Commission is driving Australia's first global city region, the 6 cities region in New South Wales. And so we're global. And it says here, so in October 2021, the Premier announced that we would move from a metropolis of 3 Greater Sydney cities. So the 3 Greater Sydney cities was brought in by Lucy, is it Lucy Turnbull? Malcolm Turnbull's wife. So she brought that in, I think, in 2017 or 2018. So that has now expanded, and expanded in March 2022 to become 6 cities, and that goes from Newcastle down through the Central Coast, through Sydney, down to Wollongong and out to the Blue Mountains. So we're now part of this massive global region, 6 mega city, and we are a global city. I just want to show the Premier, the ex-Premier, talking about, this is when he unveiled the major six city plan.
But I want to do even more to cement Sydney's reputation as the smart city down under. So we will establish a new department of enterprise and investment. And within that department, I'll appoint a minister for science, innovation and technology. The opportunities we create will fall to the 8 million people who call New South Wales home. And we will make New South Wales the smartest state. The pandemic has given us new ways to reimagine.
I'll just pause that. So he meant, I want to do even more. Oh, where is it? Okay, so he does talk a few times about us becoming a smart region and New South Wales becoming a smart region. Now, this is a report they put out when they were still the Greater Sydney Commission. So this is now who's the Greater Cities Commission. So they put this out in 2021, I think. And they just say in here, so they hired the Business of Cities to do a report on global cities. And they said at the same time they're looking for ways to permanently improve levels of coordination, intelligence gathering and data co-creation between local, regional governments, business, universities and citizens. So this is the model of a smart city. This also requires more responsive and co-created data and metropolitan planning data hubs. So you can see it's just data, data, data in what this is coming, what this is. Okay, and this is where they go into more distributed governance and management. This is the same report. Public-private task forces and agencies have proven their value, and it's now have proven their value in the coordination of pandemic response. And there are clear signs in some cities of a shift to strengthen and formalise collaboration. So this is this partnership between government and business. And I just want to say, so they're going to use this report to justify lots of things. But when you look, so who did they go and talk to and how did they come up with this approach for a global city? So they've really looked at government, civic and business leadership reports, discussion papers, press releases, etc. They've gone and talked to senior planners, leaders and decision makers around the world, and then they've analysed data. So there's no place in here for the actual people living in towns and to be asked about what it's like for them or what they would like. And this is their business partners. So their clients and partners, and you can see it's that mix of government and really big corporate entities. And there was the World Economic Forum. I've cut it off. It was over there as well. We've got the World Bank. So you've got these really global bodies in there with our governments. So the context, because we need context, and this is where it's not just such a simple thing to unpack. We're in the middle of, or in the start of the fourth industrial revolution. So this is the World Economic Forum. They are the ones who came up with the idea of the fourth industrial revolution. And to understand a little bit about the World Economic Forum, or what this fourth industrial, I'll talk a little bit about the World Economic Forum in a moment. But the fourth industrial revolution, what does it mean and how to respond? This is their paper. We stand on the brink of a technological revolution that will fundamentally alter the way we live, work and relate to one another. In its scale, scope and complexity, the transformation will be unlike anything humankind has experienced before. We do not yet know just how it will unfold. So this is where this moving sort of, trying to understand what's happening. But one thing is clear, the response to it must be integrated and comprehensive, involving all stakeholders of the global polity, from public and private sectors to academia and civil society. Now, a fourth industrial revolution is building on the third, the digital revolution that has been occurring since the middle of the last century. It's characterised by a fusion of technologies that is blurring the line between the physical, digital and biological spheres. So that's what the fourth industrial revolution is. It's the merging of biology with technology. And It will change not only what we do, but also who we are. It will affect our identity and all the issues associated with it, our sense of privacy, our notions of ownership, our consumption patterns, the time we devote to work and leisure, and how we develop our careers, cultivate our skills, meet people and nurture relationships. It's changing our health and leading to a quantified self, and sooner than we think it might lead to human augmentation, so making humans bigger and better, changing the human structure. The list is endless because it's only bound by our imagination, and it's disrupting almost every industry in every country, and the breadth and depth of these changes herald the transformation of entire systems of production, management and governance. So they talk about how it's going to change government. So simultaneously, governments will gain new technological powers to increase their control over populations based on pervasive surveillance systems and the ability to control digital infrastructure. On the whole, that governments will increasingly face pressure to change their current approach to public engagement and policy making as their central role of conducting policy, so that the central role of government to conduct policy is going to be diminished, as there's going to be new sources of competition. And new sources of competition, as I'll show you a bit later, is the big businesses themselves coming into more a policy-making mode. Okay, here we have Larry Fink. Larry Fink is the founder and CEO of BlackRock. And this is his CEO letter to CEOs from 2022. And he says employees are increasingly looking to their employer as their most trusted, competent and ethical source of information, more so than government, the media and NGOs. But this is the picture that's being created, that big business is now more trusted. So Larry Fink's the founder and chairman and CEO of BlackRock. They have $10 trillion in assets under management. He's also the member of the World Economic Forum Board of Trustees. BlackRock is on the investment roundtable formed by Treasurer Chalmers. So BlackRock and investment firms are on an investment roundtable. BlackRock has been given the rights to build the largest battery in the Southern Hemisphere in Lake Munmara, so they're in our backyard, and they have significant shares in banks, media, and many influential corporations. So they're actually, if you look up BlackRock, you'll see that they have shares in almost everything. So we have the Internet of Things. This all relies on the Internet of Things. We're all from fitness trackers to smart heating systems, the Internet of Things describes the growing network of internet-enabled devices. It's also enabling smart cities and in future driverless cars, and this is all part of the fourth industrial revolution. So this is where everything can communicate to each other in real time. And you've got the Internet of Bodies. So we're entering the era of the Internet of Bodies, collecting our physical data via a range of devices that can be implanted, swallowed or worn. So this swallowing, this embedding technology more and more into the physical body is the fourth industrial revolution. And you know, another time I will give a bigger talk about the emerging technologies. So artificial intelligence is like the big brain behind this, the city brain. So you've got all the data being collected, going somewhere in real time, and then you have the artificial intelligence that's managing it. So this is a report. A city is an aggregate of a huge amount of data. However, extract, so how do you make value out of that data? So the city brain is an end-to-end system whose goal is to glean values from big city data, especially from videos, with the assistance of rapidly evolving artificial intelligence technologies. And artificial intelligence is another topic on its own. But this is where we're heading with work. A huge amount of jobs are not going to be available very shortly, especially white-collar jobs, lawyers, administrative jobs, and the jobs that are emerging are AI, you know, being able to program AI, work with AI, data analysts and scientists, robotics engineers, etc. So the way we're working is going to fundamentally shift and change. And Okay, so the digital twin, I think I'll have to make a whole thing on this as well. So basically, when you've got everything, sensors and data and everything, you actually can recreate towns and cities in a digital twin. So it's a digital twin that you can then move around and try different things on to see how it works. But you also can twin humans. So we can have our own digital twin where, we, in real time, we could be walking across the street and people, you can see this on some big map. You could see where people are and what they're doing. And it could actually get to a point where it's, that's my digital ID number and that's me walking around. So that's saying by 2030, I think. I don't know if it gives a date to that. But that's Forbes. This is all out there. I'm just going to quickly go over this, and I will talk about this another time. But this is digital ID. It shows how we're going to need a digital identity to be able to access services. So instead of us just being able to have money and be able to access things, we're going to have a digital identification to be able to, get healthcare, live in our smart city, get food, etc. And this is Australia government working on digital ID. That's ID 2020. So ID 2020 is working on the whole framework, and that is Microsoft, Garvey, which is connected to Bill Gates, the Rockefeller Foundation, Accenture. So these massive, massive, incredibly wealthy corporate interests. We have the central bank digital currency that's being trialled in Australia. So the purple is, where is it? The research. There's some research that's going to be ended in July, I think, in Australia by the Reserve Bank. So this is where we've got central bank digital currency. We won't have money at some point anymore. We will just have capacity. We have, digital money basically, and it can be programmable what you spend it on, when you need to spend it by. They're talking about all this sort of stuff. So that's another topic on its own. This is the public-private partnership model. This is from the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has been actively engaged with United Nations Habitat to strengthen the implementation of the new urban agenda. So it's a public-private cooperation to deliver the new urban agenda, how we live in cities, highlights the role of the private sector in the delivery of urban infrastructure and services in all aspects of the urban value chain. These include policy making, planning, design, implementation, operation and maintenance, as well as financing and getting a profit return off it. Then stakeholder capitalism means that we're all sort of in there together. That's our government, countries and states. The international community would be the World Economic Forum and the United Nations, etc. This is us over here, and then companies, big business. And we're all working together in stakeholder capitalism. So corporate governance, just talk a little bit about World Economic Forum, why I'm concerned now. So I've just given you a little bit, very quick lay of the land, but why does it concern me? Well, the World Economic Forum is made up, it's an international, non-governmental and lobbying organisation. The foundation is mostly funded by its 1,000 member companies, typically global enterprises with more than $5 billion in turnover. And its mission is improve the state of the world by engaging business, political, academic and other leaders of society to shape global, regional and industry agendas. So you've got these 1,000 wealthiest corporations right at the top, shaping things that come down into our towns. And this is from Wikipedia as well. It's received criticism over the years, including the organisation's corporate capture of global and democratic institutions, its institutional whitewashing initiatives, the public cost of security, its tax exempt, unclear decision processes and membership criteria, a lack of financial transparency, and the environmental footprint of its annual meetings in Davos. So they sort of oversee the Global Future Councils, and the Global Future Councils looks at things such as the metaverse, future of trade and investment, augmented reality and virtual reality, synthetic biology. So again, all topics on their own. The United Nations and the World Economic Forum formed a partnership in 2019 to bring in the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals. So therefore, you have got the 1,000 wealthiest corporations working hand in hand with the United Nations. And this is their MOU. This is number 4, digital cooperation, collaboration between the UN and Forum to meet the needs of the 4th Industrial Revolution. Will seek to advance global analysis, dialogue and standards for digital governance and digital inclusiveness, and promote public-private partnerships to address global reskilling and lifelong learning for the future requirements for work and preparing the world's 1.8 billion young people for this transition. So what that means is that as AI increasingly takes over people's jobs, we're going to be having to do lifelong learning to keep current, or the young people will. So this is the SDG 11, Sustainable Development Goal 11 from the United Nations, make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient and sustainable. So this all falls under this. And this is the partners for the goals, for the UN 17 Sustainable Development Goals. You've got Salesforce, which is, it's a cloud compute, it's a cloud, what would I say? I don't know how to explain that. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Google and UNICEF. And then these are all the other partners that are involved in one aspect of these goals. And we've got the G20, which has a global policy roadmap for successful, ethical, smart cities. This is the city of Newcastle. This is their minutes, because Newcastle is a smart city under the G20. So a G20 Smart Cities Alliance pilot city, and the G20 Smart Cities Alliance is underpinned by the World Economic Forum. So this is just Newcastle. And the World Economic Forum, the international organisation for public-private cooperation, serves as a secretariat for the alliance. So we've got the World Economic Forum overseeing something that's in Newcastle. We have Smart Cities Council, Australia, New Zealand, and I'm just going to go quickly over a few things now and finish up. Just as another, I do want to unpack them, but I don't have time today. This is a really interesting, if you're interested in what I'm talking about, this is a really interesting YouTube clip. So this is Measuring Wellbeing webinar by the Smart Cities Council, Professor Charles Walker, head of the School of Future Environments. Because they're trying to measure, how do you measure through data wellbeing, people's wellbeing? And they're talking about it, and he actually says it could be highly manipulative, you know, how it's done. And I found that really interesting. And the woman that was sort of coordinating it didn't really know what to say to that, you know, because they talk about everything as being glossy and lovely and warm and inclusive. And he's going, actually could be incredibly manipulative if you start to, you know, whatever it is. And they still don't really understand how it's going to look either. Just going to move that on. This is the Australian Smart Communities Association. I just want to say, so this just shows to me, this is what concerns me. Since starting in 2010, this association has represented more than 150 local government authorities, which collectively represent 12.6 million Australians. So that's, you know, like close to half of the Australian population. So they will use this sort of thing to say that they've represented us or we've been represented. Then how come nobody really knows anything about smart cities? And if this is all about citizens and we're going to be brought along on the journey and our thoughts and our views are really important, why do the vast majority of people don't even know anything about it? Why do I have to stand here and look at things for hundreds of hours to be able to even just piece together just a tiny, tiny bit of it in my own understanding? Why is it not, you know, out there and being spoken about by our government officials, and we're brought along? How do we feel about it and what do we think as well? I just wanted to finish off with this, and this is the Building Smart Cities with the AWS Cloud. This is Amazon, and this is, so the AWS wins, Amazon wins the coveted approval to host federal government data. So US tech giant Amazon Web Services has won approval to host sensitive federal government data on services in Australia. Amazon, of course, is the World Economic Forum strategic partner. So they've come into, now Amazon has come into West Gosford. Amazon Australia opens logistics site at West Gosford. That's just happened. So Amazon's part of the World Economic Forum. Jeff Bezos, he's the world's, I don't think he's the world's richest man at the moment, but he was, you know, whenever this was written, a couple of years ago. So he added $10 billion to his fortune in just one day. Where is it? He's already the world's richest person, but Amazon founder has set a fresh record increasing his fortune. It's swelled by Amazon's soar-away share prices. Hundreds of millions of people trapped at home by coronavirus lockdowns around the world turned to online delivery giant to keep themselves fed and entertained. So while many businesses have been hit hard, the pandemic, some businesses have done extraordinarily well. And this was an ABC article just really talking to some drivers in the gig economy by Amazon. So he's getting wealthier and wealthier, and the workers' rights are terrible, and they're feeling incredibly demoralised and, you know, really problematic work structure. So this is sort of what we're ushering in. When you're a global city, we have a commissioner called Robin Parker. She works 2 days a week, and her role is to represent the community within this global structure, this Greater Cities Commission structure. And she, you know, like I was trying to raise that I'm concerned about this is what happens when you have a global city, you're inviting in these massive global corporate interests. And that's what she said. I find that concerning. This is Chalmers. So this is a report he did, I think it was around February. It was a talk he did, or, you know, wrote it down. So he's talking about the basic social contract and to put values in place of value. If we could redesign markets for investment and social purposes based on common metrics of performance, many more well-run for-purpose organisations could get much more of the growth capital they need. What we measure directs our action, so that's what we get data on, directs how we act, and we have to measure everything that matters. Now, I am going to do a talk on this specifically. This really concerns me as a welfare worker. What they're talking about is social impact bonds. So instead of when you had community services and they ran programs for people that were vulnerable, you know, people at risk of homelessness, people who, you know, affordable, social housing, whatever else used to come from government spending. What's happening now, and they're bringing in, Chalmers are bringing it big time, is, and there's a few programs in Australia already, corporates invest in welfare programs. The NGO, the non-government organisations sort of have to try and get that money, you know, like they have to do tender for that money. The government, then there's metrics of is it successful or not. The government then repays the initial amount that corporations put in, and then they give them an investment return. So they might get 8, 10, 20%, whatever it is, per return on their money and their investment per year, and depending on certain metrics. Now, I could talk too long about this, but I have to sort of stop. But basically, you know, the pressure on the workers, the pressure to show certain outcomes, the fact that these massive corporate interests are actually making a profit of people being vulnerable, that really, really concerns me, this new model. But they talk about it in this beautiful way about we need to value things and we need to put money where things are valued. So there's this unpacking of language that's needed. Social impact bonds, profiting from human suffering, that's what I would say. And I just want to finish with this, because this is why I'm concerned. So if you've got crisis capitalism and things come in, so, you know, everything that's being talked about is being talked about because we have to manage crises. So if you've got more and more crises and you've got more and more wealth transfer that happens with each of those crises and more ownership going into these massive global corporate interests, where does that leave us? You know, why is no one talking about the fact there's these enormous wealth transfers while more and more people are falling into poverty and really struggling? And is this the model that's being set up? And I believe it is. And I think we need to really start unpacking it, because the language on top is lovely, but there's really, really ethical areas of great concern for me. So top 0.01%, this is only the end of 2020, of the wealthiest individuals now hold 11% of the world's wealth, up more than 400 billion from 10% in 2020, while 100 million people fell into extreme poverty because of the first year of the COVID and the measures put in place. So while we have these corporations now completely heavily invested in our government, is our government going to be able to represent us? Or, you know, what's this line going to be? Who are they going to be representing? Who's going to hold the power when you have a government and a corporate, massive corporate's interests embedded together? So that's pretty much where I wanted to finish today, but thank you.